It's 14 minutes after 7. Welcome to my banner. You know, we often wish the world will change. We often wonder how it will be for our society to be corruption-free. Oftentimes, the solution to our problems is within us. How can we use social accountability as a means for a more equitable society? And this discussion is even more relevant today, coming after that disclosure, really, and that cancellation of those papers in the ongoing BAC. You think corruption, you think politician, you think parliament, you think ministers of state. Think again. It's more real now than ever. My guest really is the winner of Leadership and Social Accountability, and this was an award given to him by the World Bank. That's not a joke, and I'm happy to host him because we've had him here before. Ibrahim Tanko Amidu, he's Program Manager of Star Ghana. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Moavi.
Yeah, I know we have to talk about phase 2 of Star Ghana. Yeah, that's a conversation we'll definitely have. Yeah. But congratulations on the award.
Thank you very much.
It didn't surprise me, really.
Well.
Okay, so did it come with some cash?
No, I think I was telling somebody that the only cash I got was $122.
$122
to cover my incidental costs because the bank paid for my flight and hotel and everything. So,
okay.
But I think it's a recognition, the recognition of the work that civil society has been doing in Ghana around social accountability for me is enough recompense. Yes.
This is a privilege, really.
Yes, exactly.
So congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
We hope that you continue.
Yes, I see the award more as a recognition of the efforts of the teams that we've worked with, particularly in Star Ghana, and the partners we've worked with, including Joy FM.
Yeah.
And not really Joy News, and not really an individual award. Maybe I'm the front for the award.
Okay, so we share in it.
Exactly.
Can we share in the 122?
122, I think I might give you $2 or something.
Okay, so let's bring this conversation to something that is happening today in our country. I mean, I heard about the WAEC incident. Initially, I thought it was a joke. And then I heard how widespread it had become.
Exactly.
So the issue of people still trying to cut corners, still trying to get things that they have not really worked for, is still here.
Yes.
And this is creeping. These are very young people who are growing up with this. It's scary.
It's scary, and I think it's points to what I would describe as a systemic failure at all levels. How did these papers leak at a WAEC in the first place? And I think the scale of the leakage is scary. So it's not like a rogue element within WAEC who has been able to pilfer a piece of paper. You have 4 going to 5 papers leaking, and all over the place. So there is something at that level, one. I think the second level is at the failure at the community and school levels. That how come that children feel they have to get those papers, those leaked questions, in order that they can go ahead, but they didn't feel sufficiently prepared. And those who were retailing, the parents who were procuring for their kids, what does it say about society? So I think it's failure at so many levels of our society, and we need to ask ourselves very hard questions. I
have been told that some of the schools actually buy the papers so that their schools would pass and be ranked high.
Yes, and that's where, again, the challenges with our educational system. We privilege the pass marks in education. We don't look at the skills and the competencies that the children acquire. And therefore, at a point, you have graduates coming to work with you, and they are completely unprepared for the work environment, to do the things that you would expect somebody to do. Because we privilege, well, get A+ in mathematics. But the thinking and analysis skills, the project management skills, I mean, all those things are not there. So that's what I'm saying, that these should make us ask a lot of questions beyond the leaked papers. We should ask our questions around what do we value most about our education? What is the end? What are you preparing the kids for? To pass exams? Or to become citizens who can reason, who can work in an environment, who can prioritize. I mean, all those things, you know, we need to start asking ourselves.
You know, last year there was an issue about this police escorts who had opened one of the papers, the questions, because usually you have a GES person and with a police escort go pick up the papers before they distribute on the morning of the exams. And that case, we still have not seen the end of it.
Exactly.
So it looks as if we haven't, it's either we haven't learned from somebody being punished for doing the wrong thing. And usually when you want people to be accountable, you want to set an example for them, don't you?
Hasn't that been the story of our country since independence? That we hardly learn from our experiences. I mean, these failures would occur. They occur even in the most advanced countries. But the difference is that they learn from the experiences, and the next time, even if there's an issue occurring, it's not exactly the same thing. But we have been condemned to a repetition of the same mistakes. Take it, what level of society would you think of that you don't see a repetition? Floods? We are there. Exam leakages? This is not the first time. Every aspect of our national life, we've just been condemned to not learning the lessons and not moving on. And again, start from what are the values that we hold here in our community? How do we train our students in the schools, our workplaces, our politics? All these things make it so difficult for us as a nation to step back and see these are the lessons that we are learning. These are the measures that we need to put in place, irrespective of whose ox is God. I mean, what's...
You know, you took us to the flats, so let's continue from there. You know how our leaders and people in authority have said, oh, we're going to ensure that this happens, we're going to do this, and we will not see this again. And we know, because we've seen it, after June 3, it rained again, and we realized that the problem is not gone, it is still there. How do we make these people who make promises to us accountable?
One is for we as citizens to realize that it is not just the responsibility of government, that we just don't complain and sit back and say, okay, then government has to solve it. That we need to take a very, very, very active interest role beyond donating for relief and etc. To ensure that never again, because when it happens, we are the ones who are most affected. It is not the politicians, it's not what, yes, they are fulfilling their roles as what, leaders. But I think it is the responsibility of citizens, particularly citizens groups, civil society, faith-based organizations, whatever, to stand up and say, we are pursuing this. You know, when it happens, the airwaves are flooded, we are all talking, this is terrible, it must never happen again. Then the dry season comes and we all go to sleep. But we need to consistently follow, just hold their feet to the fire. And this is where I think that the media has a very important role to play. You know, sometimes, and with the greatest, I mean, of respect and etc., you know, your attention span is so short. You know, you give a child a toy, plays with it, sees the new one, drops this one, goes to the next one. I'm not saying that you are kids. No. But I'm saying that the media does not consistently follow. You have your constraints, you have your, I mean, priorities. But it is only when we take an issue and follow it, for maybe not on a daily basis.
You know, haven't we been left to do all the work? Everybody's looking up to the media to talk for them.
That is why the first group that I mentioned was civil society. And civil society, everyone says, oh, the NGOs. But the Ghana Institute of Engineers, of architects, of planners, even of accountants, Institute of Chartered Accountants, where is the money going? How is it being accounted for? So everybody has a role, and I'm not just saying that it's just the media.
Okay.
But it's all the stakeholders working together.
It's interesting you mentioned all the stakeholders, but you know how often it's been difficult to get them to even contribute on discussions and bring their professional expertise to bear. Everybody's afraid they will be tagged.
Yes. But when you are afraid to, change has never come from being timid. If you look at everywhere, even in our national life, where change has come about, it has been when people say that enough is enough. This cannot continue.
Okay, so let's take it step by step.
Okay.
How do we get there? Because as it is now, the only people I see talking about the flats, even though there are individuals who are still contributing, which means that we're still thinking about the situation. We don't want to go back there, but people don't know what to do. It's only the media houses who are consistently even talking about. And you know how when you talk about the same thing for days, people get fed up.
Exactly.
The same people that you're working for, they would say, why are you always talking about the flats? This thing happened like 2 weeks ago. Aren't you tired? We're tired. We want to hear something else.
I think 2 or 3 days ago, I put a quote from Confucius on my Facebook wall. I'm not sure I can get it completely right, but it says, when government or the state is acting correctly, speak boldly, act boldly. When the state has lost its way, speak softly, act boldly. The reverse seems to be our case. We speak loudly and act very meekly. And I think that we need more focus on the actions. I mean, the media raises the issues. It is left for civil society to take it and see what kind of relationships can we broker. The media alone cannot do it. Institute of Planners cannot do it alone. But it is through those kind of relationships being forged that the Institute of Planners with the maybe Agbogbloshie Residents Association in partnership with Joy News want to take this as a test case, look at it. That solves one part of the problem. But the very systemic issues that have condemned us to every year going through the ritual of we are breaking houses on waterways, we are dredging whatever canals, doesn't solve the problem. It needs a more thoroughgoing analysis. How do we plan our city? Why should we even be talking about gutters, whether covered or whatever, in this modern era where we are even talking about underground sewage and water distance? Which well-planned city do you go in and see gutters, you know, as a way of, you know, draining of flood waters? Nkrumah started out with Tema, where you had all those underground sewage systems. Where is that system now? If not, we are condemned to constantly break houses. Water doesn't have just one water causeway. Maybe the major rivers do have. But as a result of building whatever, we change the topography, water finds new. So it means that we are constantly going to have to break distance. And unless we look at it in a very holistic manner, we will just tackle one something of the problem and not the full one. And that's why I think that media can generate the evidence, make that available to civil society organizations, who can then work with, you know, others to deal with government. Now, not dealing with government in an antagonistic manner. You know, I am sure there's people in government or in the state sector who want this to be addressed.
Really?
But they may not have the capacity.
Because you know how often people would say, oh, we've made so many proposals.
Yes.
And in fact, when some of them go on retirement and you talk to them, you'd realize they actually have a plan.
Yes.
It's the implementation that has been stalled.
Exactly.
So when you talk, somebody has to be on the ground to do the action.
Somebody has to hold government to account. Somebody has to hold government to account. And when you do it as individuals or as Joy News or as the Institute of Chartered Accountants, then you single yourself out. You can be tagged and attacked. But if you do that as a collective, this is a collective of organizations, of groups that are interested in addressing this issue. Then it moves away from that partisan focus, because a lot of the discourse after the floods made me very sad, because we started going back to the old thing of we, when we were in power, we did this. You, when you were in power, you didn't do this. We raised this money. You didn't raise this money. And then what needs to be done gets lost in all that thing about, you know, the equalization. We need to move the conversation beyond that one and see how do we sustainably tackle this. Floods would always come. In the UK, they had it last year. Even in the US, after the famous one in is it New Orleans or whatever that led to all this, the Bush, the Katrina.
Yeah, but that's a hurricane. I mean, that's not like 2 hours of.
But what I'm just saying is that no matter how you prepare, nature, can always deal you a blow.
Sure.
But it is how you respond and ensure that it doesn't happen that way again. It's where we are lacking. We cannot prevent floods completely.
There's also the issue about, and I think is one of the most important, about emergency response.
Exactly.
And I mean, we've been here before.
Yes.
The same things happen. Sadly, when we even have dead bodies, we can carry them with some kind of dignity.
Yes.
And if I'm not saying I'm not preaching or looking forward to some sort of disaster, but you can be sure that we'll carry dead bodies the same way that we did carry on June 3 and June 4.
Exactly. Yes, I was looking at this whole issue about the filling stations, on a different note altogether. And I read that, even in terms of managing that, the licensing and etc., there were more than 8, 10 different government agencies, all dealing with that. At what level of coordination? So you take the issue of the floods and all those disaster managements, and you can ask yourself, how many uncoordinated government agencies are doing this thing? Should NADMO be the rallying point, the center point? And if so, how have we positioned NADMO? Resourcing, staffing, So I get really, 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 sad and whatever, whenever there's a change of government and we start looking at changes in the top hierarchy of
some of these critical institutions.
Some of these critical institutions, not just NADMO. Because these are institutions that require the technical people. You might want to have a politically connected person at the very top to open doors and etc. But maybe below that, it should be staffed by technocrats who will be able to not only advise, implement, but will carry the institutional memory. But if after every 4 years or 8 years, you take those people out, you are weakening the capacity of the organization. I looked at NADMO's website on the way here, seeking to find, okay, where is the disaster preparedness plan, maybe for floods, for whatever. And was it on the web, the news yesterday, the vice president was saying that government was now developing a comprehensive plan to deal with the floods, 2015,
And
so,
the other issue of if there's a change in government, would that plan be carried through,
exactly.
or would it be another, plan altogether that's coming up?
So we've
got a lot of issues.
Yes.
But the other issue I wanted us to tackle with this subject, and then we'll close it, is the monies that we've heard have been put down to cater for the victims and the people who are, as in their children and those who are in hospital and that kind of thing. How do we, beyond all, we've heard that the president says there's a 50,000 fund that's been set up for the victims. Just beyond the announcement, Ivory Coast has contributed, this person is donating this. How do we, the people, know that these monies are being put to the use for which it was set up?
I'm happy that you mentioned, or you focused on, emphasized the point about the use to which these funds are being put. Most often we focus on the financial accountability. So we get a statement that said, okay, we got 80,000 CDs or 80 million, we give 20,000 to Kolebu, we did this, etc., etc. So we get a financial accounting. But what value did we get for the monies at the various levels? Research. What processes need to be put in place? I was looking again at the NADMO website, and I'm sorry I'm putting the focus on NADMO.
No, it's fine.
That is really the institution that the go-to institution. And I expected that maybe they would start that whole process of even just putting out there, this has come, this is the total as at this date. These are the ways in which we've applied them to date. It's when we don't hear anything that people begin to think, oh, now something funny is happening, because our past experiences have kind of conditioned us to believe, to be very skeptical about the use to which these monies are. So one is the transparency about how much you are getting at any point in time, and then how these are being applied, and then to demand same of all those recipients of the organizations. And I think also we need to move beyond just the focus on what the government is getting. All kinds of flood relief assistance programs are popping up all over the place. Who is coordinating that? Who even knows how much is going in there?
Do we need somebody? I mean, I'm a private person.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do to help the people.
Yeah.
And I have the medium, so I can announce and people can bring things to me. What sort of, how do you want me to account for the things I'm receiving?
I think one, before you go out there to raise money, have the systems and processes in place to account to those who donate. The second is to do that with reference to a central coordinating body. Everybody is getting used clothing and etc. Important. But is that really all that these people need? I heard one of the medical specialists saying that really people have been coming to the hospitals to donate bread, to donate clothing. But their greatest need at this time is really first the medical supplies to the money to buy the distance. And we're not talking about that.
Oh, we have been. Because, for instance, you know, Kolebu told us that it would cost 500 Ghana cedis to change the dressings for those burns victims every 3 days. So, and they're not asking you to bring the money. Because you know the other issue, and I think it's brilliant, because if you took money to Kolebu, it's going to sit in some central reserve, and it will be difficult even taking it out. So they're asking you to buy the supplies, the real things that they need to do the job. And I thought it was really good. So we've been carrying that kind of message out.
Brilliant, and you should be congratulated on that. But I've also seen, you know, pictures of people who have gone there with, you know, soft drinks and etc.
Some of these people can't even eat.
Exactly. You know, so one, I don't think we should just focus on just all donations should go to NADMO. You might feel more comfortable donating through your church, and that's fine. But there needs to be a reference point around which we say, okay, these are the things that have been received. Where is the area of greatest need? This morning, victims in Tema were complaining that they've been ignored because all the focus has been around those living around the circle area and where
because of the fire,
ground zero and etc. But there are other communities that are affected, you know. So if NADMO or the relevant government agency doesn't step forward and provide the leadership, then we then have all these scattered things about people going with bread and soft drinks and etc. out of very good motives, but really maybe having the back this thing. When the disaster happens, how do we quickly do an assessment of the needs, the immediate needs? How do we communicate that out so that, you know, we know that, okay, there's a need for this part, these items, these medical supplies, etc. And people can target the various aspects of the needs. And then the accounting, first of all, from the top to you and through you to those that further below you. And we have always focused, almost everybody's focused on the immediate flood response. There's the resettlement, there's the reconstruction, and so people get all these immediate things. Then after that, as soon as the news media turn their attention somewhere, everybody forgets about them. You go back and they're still living in those quality conditions.
They are.
Yes.
They are.
And, you know, what are the numbers that you need to call? I heard people saying 0244 How can you remember those things in an emergency?
We need a simple number which can divert you to the various...
I can't just simply comprehend what is the difficulty in getting a 119. That cuts across everywhere. So you don't tell me that if it is fire, call 181. If it is armed robbery, call 2. No, just let's have one. Across all platforms.
Is it difficult to get one? Because we've been talking about it.
I don't know.
Amazing. Amazing.
Amazing, yes.
There's so many things to talk about. And I promised you that I was going to, we're sharing that award that you received. Exactly. So I'm going to get everything out of you. Monitoring international media. I think yesterday and this morning you realized that in Rwanda, for instance, they're trying to change the constitution to allow President Kagame a third term. We've seen that happen in a place not too far from Rwanda. And so people are beginning to see, is there a Burundi in the making even in Rwanda? But the question I want to ask you is, what is the thing with Africa that the leaders, even after serving for some 21 years, for such a long time, for 19 years, whatever it is, they feel that they want to go again?
Is it about Africa? I think I've seen examples also in Asia and a few other Latin American areas. So it may not.
Oh, so we're not unique.
Well, I mean, but we also need to talk about our own issues. I think the first thing that amazes me about this is that if this is something that you think goes counter to your culture or to your way of doing things or whatever, why do you even put it in your constitution in the first place? Britain doesn't have term limits. They've gone for a parliamentary system of government. Thatcher was, what, I think how many years in power? You know, Tony Blair, you know. But when you go and put it just to have a flashy latest constitution, or you go and then do it just to please the Western donors, and then you come up and then realize that, oh, this is not something that we want to. So that's the first level. I think the second is that we try to even transpose our chieftaincy, what do you call it, culture, so to speak, into the modern or state governance. And so, well, if this man goes, there'll be confusion. But I don't think really that's the way it should be.
You know, when I hear these things happening, I kind of, irrespective of the challenges that we have in our country, I'm kind of proud that I'm Ghanaian, that I live in Ghana. Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. So we'll see how. And I love very much the things you've shared with us today. We want every person in their own small ways, whether it's paying to get examination papers so that your children will easily pass, or making people in authority accountable so that we don't experience the disasters that we have in our country. I pray that we'll follow through these things. And I like very much the angle of civil society groups, institutions, everybody coming on board so that we can hold authorities accountable. All right. You deserve the award, really. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure that I'll host you again.
I look forward to it.
When is Star 2 coming out?
I can't speak for the donors, but it will come soon, very soon.
Okay. Yeah. I know something that you don't know I know. So I really pray that you get it.
I do want to talk about that.
Okay, so thank you so much. Mr. Ibrahim Tanko Amido is the program manager of Star Ghana. Oh, used to be.
Well, there's no Star Ghana at the moment.
Oh, there will be. Don't worry, I have hope. But most importantly, he's also received the World Bank's GPSA Award for Leadership and Social Accountability for the Africa region. This is not just a Ghanaian award, this is for the Africa region. This is really huge. So congratulations, we wish you the very best. Okay, but for the next few weeks, don't try to tempt a Muslim brother or sister with food, because the Ramadan has begun. And my colleague Ridwan Karim Dini Osman has been doing a few rounds. We want to share his experience with all of you. Please stay with us. It's still the AM show.